Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Science Class. Me, Dr. Habib. In today's lecture, we are going to have a very simple and easy topic of the hospital pharmacy, and that is physical plant and its equipment. In this lecture, we'll have the introduction of this topic and we'll see the overall picture or the summarized overview of this topic. And we'll also understand the floor map of hospital pharmacy, or we also call it as layout of the hospital pharmacy. And in the coming lecture, we'll see the details of this topic. But first thing is first, what is physical plant? We say any facility or service or anything that has physical existence. In other words, we can touch, we can see them. So we can see that. So that is called as physical plant. So we say anything that physically exists. So that is called as physical plant. As I said earlier, in this case, we'll consider physical plant as a hospital pharmacy. So we will try to bring the hospital pharmacy in existence, correct? So for that, we'll have the location, and after location, we'll have the physical space for that, and then we'll install the equipments, and we need the space for the equipments, and furthermore, we need the furniture related work for different kind of activities. We call them as furnishings. So remember, whatever in the coming lecture I will talk about, that will be hospital pharmacy. So in this topic, we mainly talk about the hospital pharmacy, and we'll talk about the location of the hospital pharmacy. And after the location, of course, we need the physical space, and then we will install the equipments, and then we need the space for the equipments, and then other furnishings. Okay. Here we have the typical or standardized floor map of hospital pharmacy, or we also call it as layout. So this is the standardized layout of hospital pharmacy. On the very front, we have these two sections. Number one, this is the administration section. This section will control or regulate the overall activities of the hospital pharmacy. Adjacent to it, we have dispensing section and the free space. In the dispensing section, we have the counters, and in the counters, the pharmacists, they are sitting and they dispense the drugs or medicine to the patients who are waiting in the free space. We also call it as waiting area. Okay, now these two sections, they are open towards a common corridor or a passage, and to this passage, these three sections, they are also opened towards this passage. Okay. Over here on the back side, the first section over here is the store. In the store, we have the raw materials and the finished products. We also call it as ready products. And then adjacent to it, we have the manufacturing section. So this is adjacent to it, and here we manufacture those preparations. We call them as extemporaneous preparations or non-sterile preparations, like tablets and ointments. If we talk about the sterile preparations, manufacturing, such as in sterile, we have like injectables and ophthalmic solutions. So we prepare them in another section we call as aseptic section. So that is adjacent to the manufacturing section. So let me recap it. This is a very standardized floor map or layout of the hospital pharmacy, in which the first three sections, this is the store, the raw materials and finished products, they're available, and this is the manufacturing section. Adjacent to it is the aseptic section, and these three sections, they are open towards a common corridor or a passage through which the products or the medicine can be easily transferred to the dispensing section, where the pharmacists are sitting and they can dispense the drugs to the patients waiting in the free space. And here we have the administration. Okay, before going through the overall topic, and just let me simplify the topic for all of you. What's the background of physical plant and its equipment? What's the introduction of physical plant and its equipment? We will understand this. What physical plant is and what are the different equipments needed for it? How can we develop this physical plant? And in this case, we are talking about the hospital pharmacy. Guess there is a hospital, and suppose there are medical stores outside the hospital. Similarly, the medical store inside the hospital, so that is called as hospital pharmacy. So now the question is, we are going to start from the very beginning. From A, we will start and then we'll end on Z. So how are we going to develop a hospital pharmacy? For that, first of all, we'll have the plannings. Number one, we'll have the plannings. We will have this planning, we will decide the goal of our hospital pharmacy. Is it our goal that we will only dispense the drugs, or we will manufacture or compound the drug? So we will determine the goal of a hospital pharmacy. And after that, to achieve that goal, we will go for the second planning. What kind of equipments and resources and functions and procedures do we need to achieve our goal? We will determine that planning. And then in third planning, we will translate these two plannings in the building form. These services will be performed in that building, so that's called as architectural planning. Okay, now we are going to have a developed hospital pharmacy. We will have the plannings. After the plannings, we'll have the location. Number one, and when we'll talk about the location, where in the hospital pharmacy, where it should be located. First floor, basement, in the center of activities. So we'll talk about that in detail. Okay, after that we'll talk about the hospital pharmacy development step by step. Goal, and then functions and resources and equipments, we will determine them. In third step, we will determine the workload. How, we just talk about the workload like inpatients and outpatients, and then we'll decide in the fourth step, like we will determine the workflow. Like this is the proper workflow coming from the raw materials and then into manufacturing, compounding, and then packaging, then mixing, labeling, and then quarantine and inspection and all that. So this normal workflow should be determined. Okay, goal is known, functions to be performed, they are known, and then we just know about the workload and the workflow, and then we'll get to know about the personnel and floor space and the equipments needed for that. So we will have a very proper design. Okay, hospital pharmacy development, we are talking about this. So location is must, plannings they are must, step by step we'll look at different steps, and then after that we will decide about the floor space. What are the reasons? They will decide the floor space. And why do we need floor space? There are different areas for that. For them we need the floor space. Like for packaging, we need area. So for packaging area we need a space, right? For the injections reconstitution we need another area. So that area also need floor space. Similarly is the case with filling and mixing and quarantine and labeling and inspection. So different areas. So for different areas we need floor space. And then we will decide about the temperature controlled storage facilities. Like different drugs, they are stored at different temperatures. So this facility is also a must for the hospital pharmacy. Because we are talking about the hospital pharmacy, we'll start from the very beginning till end. Okay, then we talk about the cold room, and then we talk about the environment control facilities. Yes, in the hospital pharmacy, this environment should be controlled. We need the fresh air, ventilation we need. How can you bring this ventilation? We'll talk about that in detail. And then after that, we need the equipments. Who plan for the equipments, like pharmacist, hospital pharmacist, head of the department, head of the hospital, architect, and then purchasing agent. Okay, what kind of equipments do we need? Fixed, movable equipments. And then in the last, we'll talk about the utilities, like electricity we need, plumbing we need, so pipe systems, right? And then we need the transport system, finishes like walls and counters and the floor, how they should be. So we'll talk about them one by one in detail, until or unless we develop a standardized hospital pharmacy. So let's go through it. First of all, we have the plannings. Okay, master planning, functional, and then architectural planning. In master planning, okay, in the next lecture we'll see the details of all these points, each and every aspect of this hospital pharmacy. In master planning, we decide the goal and objective of the hospital pharmacy. The goal might be manufacturing, compounding, or dispensing. Okay, functional planning. So this goal to be achieved, what functions do we perform? What kind of equipments and resources do we need for that? So we go for another planning that's called as functional planning, and the third planning is architectural. These two plannings, they are translated into a building form. So that planning is called as architectural planning. Okay, then the next is location. Of course, we'll talk about this in detail. What should be the location of the hospital pharmacy? In the hospital, in the center of the activities, all departments should access the hospital pharmacy easily. If the hospital pharmacy, main pharmacy is not enough for them, so we will have the satellite pharmacies. What are they? We'll talk about them. And then the steps, one by one, we'll talk about in detail. Then is the floor space. What are the reasons that will determine the floor space? And these are the areas for which we need the floor space. Cleanup area. Cleanup area is that area in which we manufacture and compound the extemporaneous preparations, like ointments are there and the dosage forms are there. Second one is non-sterile mixing and filling room. So by name it is indicated the area where we mix and fill the non-sterile preparations. Correct. We'll talk about this. Pre-packaging area. So we package the solid dosage forms into the containers. Injection reconstitution area. This is very important. Injection reconstitution means there are injections, they are converted into liquid form before administration. So before they were in solid form, then they are converted into liquid form. So that is called reconstitution. So for reconstitution we need area, and that's called injection reconstitution area. So of course for this area we also need floor space. There should be the facility of laminar flow hoods. What are they? We'll talk about them in detail in the next lecture. Then is the labeling and inspection room. From name it's indicated we will label the unlabeled products, and also of course we'll have the inspection of these products, and we'll have the labeling accessories and all that. We'll talk about that. Quarantine storage area. This is very interesting and very important as well. The products, they will come to the quarantine storage area before they to be dispensed. So they come to the quarantine storage area. Here we just have three kind of labels, like green, yellow and red. We'll talk about them. So we decide, is this product passed, rejected, or is it in the process? So this is the quarantine storage area. Okay, the next one is temperature controlled storage facilities. So different drugs, they are stored at different temperatures. We need the different temperature facilities like refrigerator, and then we talk about the cold room and cool temperature, and then room temperature and all that. So we'll talk about different temperatures in detail. The next one is cold room. We need this facility for the hospital pharmacy. And then is the environmental controlled facilities. We'll talk about the environmental controlled facilities. The environment should be controlled, like the fresh air should be present, like ventilation is here, right? So we don't need the humidity, we don't need the temperature to be very much high. So for that we need the ventilation facility. And then the equipment planning, and I said in equipment planning, like hospital pharmacist and the head of the hospital and architect and purchasing agent, so they plan for the equipments. And equipment selection criteria, how do we select the equipments? So what is the criteria to select the equipments? We'll talk about this. Equipments required, fixed equipments and movable equipments. Fixed equipments are such kind of equipments which are fixed, they cannot be moved, like elevators and sink and counters. So they are fixed during the manufacturing, or they are installed when the architectural work is going on. Movable equipments are such kind of equipments, they are not fixed, they can move from one place to another, like mixers, carts and other equipments. In the last we'll talk about the utilities like electricity. This is must, because different areas, like different very important areas, in that we need the electricity. We'll talk about this plumbing. So how should be the pipeline system, cold water and hot water and the waste removal passage. So we'll talk about the plumbing. And here of course the hospital pharmacist and the architect, their coordination is must. Okay, the next one is transport system. This is very interesting. Okay, the products are ready. How can they be transported to the desired destinations or to the nursing stations? Through these high technology systems. One is pneumatic tube system and the second one is conveyor belt system. Okay, pneumatic tube system, on this one very nice video is available on the YouTube that is called pneumatic tube system. Such kind of system that is consisted of long pipes, and they run along the length of the walls of the hospital, and in these pneumatic tubes the products, they are delivered or transported through capsules. They are called delivery capsules. So the products are kept inside the capsule, and the capsule runs inside these pneumatic tubes to the desired destinations. The second system is the conveyor belt system for the transportation. So the belts, they are moving, and along the belts the containers they move, and then inside the containers the products they reach to the desired destinations. Okay, in the finishes we'll talk about the walls, how the walls should be constructed, how the walls should be painted. We'll talk about the counters construction, and we'll talk about the floor. It should be non-slippery, and asphalt tile is there, and the rubble tile. Whatever the case, we'll talk about all these finishes in the detail. Anyhow, it was the overall picture or the overview or the introduction of physical plant and its equipment, and we learned that yes, physical plant, here we mean by physical plant as hospital pharmacy. How can we develop it? What do we mean by physical plant? What do we mean by the equipments? So I hope you people did enjoy this overview, and I hope it helped you a lot. If it did help, so please press the like button and the bell icon, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Science Killa. And as always, Science Killa. Thanks for the listening, and stay blessed.